All right, so we're talking about boundaries and dual relationships as counselors, right? So what is boundary? Boundary can be described as anything as a frame around the counseling relationship that creates safety for the client. So like that's the key part, safety for the client, right? Because we have officially transitioned from being clients ourselves and now we are the professional, right? And so the benefits of being a client, being the most important person, that's gone. That's out the window now. That is no longer us. So we have to establish clear boundaries in our work because clients can misunderstand the nature of our relationship and that can get in the way of their treatment. What I mean is they can get wrapped up in their feelings, right? For those of us who are working with, it doesn't even have to be the opposite sex. Working with any client, they can get in their feelings and get hurt, right? They may think that the relationship is something else. They think that you're closer than what you actually are. If they think that you're your friend, right? So of course we want to have that friendship, that kindness, that demeanor about ourselves when we're working with our clients, right? Like we don't want to be, unkind. We don't want to be militant. We want to be friendly, but we cannot be friends, right? We can be therapeutic in our relationship, but we can't cross over that boundary, that line, because then it takes away the safety for them. Once we get in that personal relationship, then it's about a transactional relationship, right? So that means when you're in a friendship, that means you're on equal footing and you give and you receive, right? There's an expectation that, if Matt's my friend, I'm going to be there for Matt. Matt's going to be there for me, right? And if Matt's not there for me, or if I'm not there for Matt, I'm upset. I'm in my feelings, right? I have an expectation that it's going to be a certain way, right? And so our clients need to know that we care for them, that we want to help them, but we're their counselor, right? At the end of the day, like we have a relationship that has to be professional. Because we're dealing with people who are traumatized. We're dealing with people who may have attachment issues. And what I mean by attachment issues is based on the way that they were growing up. If they experience certain trauma, they may attach to anybody that shows them kindness, right? And then for those of us who are working in a co-ed facility, that means if you're working with men and women, or people who identify as they or them or whatever the case may be, it gets even more trickier, right? Because it's not just a question of being friends, it's that romantic feeling. You have people who have been victimized. You have people who do not know boundaries. And so we have to model boundaries for them. That's for some of them, we are going to be the first example of boundaries for them. Next slide, please. So that leads into the next one. What are dual relationships? So a dual relationship is any time that you have multiple relationships exist between a counselor and client, right? And so Alameda County is a big place, right? But the world of recovery can be small. Those of us who have been in treatment or who are in recovery, it's not uncommon for us to go into treatment and our new intake is old boy that we used to get loaded with, right? It's not uncommon that we come into treatment and we've been assigned to take our ex-girlfriend's brother to their appointment. It's not uncommon to come in and realize, our cousin needs help and they need a bed, whatever the case. So that's a dual relationship because not only are you the client's counselor, but you're also their family member. So student, friend, family member, employee. Next slide, please. Family members, significant others, friends, sponsors, sponsees, maybe sports. If you have children and they play football, it's the football coach, or one of the other kids' parents. If you're in recovery, your sponsee may need a program and they find themselves in your program, right? Friends, people that we may have already been in recovery with, or friends that we had when we were using, we may realize that our significant others need help, right? Like I said, cousins, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, family members, they might find themselves in your facility. And it's difficult. I'm not gonna lie. It's not gonna be easy. It's difficult, but we still have to maintain that that professional boundary, right? Next slide, please. So some examples of boundary crossing counter to client. So like that's like me if I'm breaking rules for clients. For example, if you're at a facility and there's smoking times, I was at Magnolia. I used to be at Magnolia House, and their schedule they could only smoke cigarettes during certain times. So a boundary. So a boundary crossing could be me saying, "Hey, it's past the time that we're supposed to be smoking cigarettes, but let's smoke a cigarette anyway." You know what I'm saying? It's Saturday, you know, it's 8:30. Let's go out. I want to have a cigarette too, you know?
Or if you're a staff member that smokes cigarettes and it's not that hour to smoke a cigarette and you take that client out with you to smoke a cigarette, you know, during the time when they shouldn't be smoking cigarettes. You know, that's
yeah. Right. And it, you know, and it makes sense because it's like, okay, I feel guilty because I know what it's like to smoke cigarettes and not be able to smoke. And here I'm going to go smoke, and my counselor's going to be watching me from the window, looking like a lost puppy. I'm going to feel bad, right? That's the humanity. That's my humanity, right? But we can't do that, right? It seems something really, really common sense, but there's going to be times where it's not going to be so common sense. Remember what I said the other day? There's no such thing as common sense when it comes to working in the SUD field, because you have people who are coming in at all different kinds of backgrounds, cultures, experiences, and our understanding is never going to be completely the same, right? Now, these examples that I'm giving you, wait, go back. These examples that I'm giving you are based on a normal day-to-day, there's nothing going on, right? There's exceptions to the rule. And what I mean by exceptions is if you have a client that's in crisis, right? You have a client, maybe you're working at the detox facility, maybe you're working at an inpatient program and the client gets news that their baby's in the hospital. You know, maybe their son just got killed. There's a lot of like, there's something that happens, right? And they're in complete crisis. They're hysterical. There's going to be situations where, yeah, maybe taking the client outside and allowing them to smoke a cigarette and speak to you is the best course of action, right? Now, it's a little bit confusing. Like, okay, so when is it okay? The more you go on in the field and the more that you have experience, you'll start to see those times where it's okay to adjust the boundary for the situation at hand, right? Another key tool in that is communication, right? Always have an open line of communication to your supervisor. Let them know, hey, I just want to let you know, I was talking to so-and-so, they just got bad news, so-and-so, you know, their mom, whatever, and they're hysterical. And I just want to let you know that when my person took over, my relief came over, or whatever the case may be, I took him outside to smoke a cigarette so he could calm down. I need you to know that. And they may say, okay, we'll talk about that when you get back. Or they may say, okay, whatever, you know, because you have to think about not just the good of the client, but the good of the community. If you have a hysterical client that's, you know, absolutely going out of their mind in grief, what's safest for the community as a whole? Is it trying to de-escalate the client and making sure that they feel heard, that they can calm down, or making sure that the rules are followed completely to the letter of the law where you got somebody going crazy right now? Which is more safer for the community, right? So again, going back to these examples, these are examples from normal, every day to day. There's no other thing going on. Can you go back? So allowing extra privileges for clients, you know, that might be if you work the graveyard shift, everybody's in bed, somebody can't sleep, they ask if they could go on the computer and go on Facebook. Okay, that's fine. Oh, can I watch TV? Okay, fine. Not enforcing policies the same. You have somebody that might, you know, come into group and they come into group late, you know, and you got to give them whatever consequence comes from not showing up to group on time. But you have another person Maybe another person that you already have an existing relationship with. Oh, it's cool, but you see, it was just only a minute late, man. It was only a couple. It's nothing, you know. Oh, we're coming back from the doctor's appointment. I'm running low on cigarettes. Can we please just the gas station is right there. We gotta pass by it anyway. Please, can we do that? Please, please. All right. So you deviate, right? And you know, it seems like real, well, we are gonna pass by it anyway, right? It is on the way. It is just 1 minute, right? But that slippery slope of not enforcing things the same, clients see that. We think that they don't, right? But clients will see that, and that's going to have a direct impact on their treatment adherence, sticking to what they got to do. They have a lot on their plate already, and we are supposed to be the example who they can turn to when they're going through something. We are the example that they turn to for order, to make sure that things are stable, right? Everything in their life, when they come into treatment, everything is unstable. There's no such thing as calm seas for them, right? So for them to come into a facility and not feel that same sense of safety and fairness, this could be their first and last attempt at treatment, right? Ultimately, it is their choice, right? It's not our fault what someone chooses to do, but we do have an impact on the choices that they make. Okay, next slide. Examples of crossing from a client to a counselor. If you're letting your client, maybe they're making, sexual jokes, that's what she said, things of that nature. And it's funny, right? We're all, for the most part, if you're working in the adult field, they're going to be 18 and up, right? It's not too inappropriate if two adults are making sexual jokes. But unfortunately, it is. Again, you're dealing with people who may not have an idea of what's appropriate. They might not know what the boundaries are. And again, this is dependent on the situation at hand. This is not a hard and fast rule, like you never make any kind of jokes. You might not make any sexual jokes, but you can make jokes with your clients. You can be funny, But like, for example, if I'm a client of Drew's, right, and Drew's my counselor, and I'm making, some kind of sexual remark about his appearance, and he doesn't say anything or set that boundary, what do you think is the message that I'm going to get?
It's okay.
That it's okay. So then I would continue to do it.
And possibly escalate into something else.
Right? Now I'm thinking it's okay that, oh, he likes me too. Okay. Oh, he liked me too. Okay. All right. But he's working with Lakeisha also, who's also a client. Oh, why you working with Drew? Why you got, oh, that's my counselor. That's my counselor. Now you got a whole situation, and that's a bad example. That's a bad example, but it's true, or it could be that someone might construe something. If you're making a joke, if the person, even if they're the same sex as you, they may take it as unwanted sexual advance. You know what I'm saying? I may say something to Lakeisha. It's a funny sexual joke. We're both women, but Lakeisha might be uncomfortable now because she doesn't like, why is she saying that to me? Now the environment is no longer a safe place to be able to heal in, right? And oftentimes you have clients who have experienced sexual trauma, whether growing up as a child, whether when they were in their addiction. Many of the clients, a very large amount of clients, both men and women, and those who identify as another orientation, or another expression, they have experienced sexual trauma. So we want to make sure that it's safe. Those of us who work with families, right? It's even more crucial to be mindful of the kind of things that we say to joke around with, because their children may have experienced some kind of trauma. If they're in child welfare, and you as a counselor are engaging in what you think are funny, you're just trying to make friends with the client, make them feel comfortable. It may be construed as something else, and the next thing you know, child welfare gets involved, and questioning the efficacy or how well your program is at helping people recover. And then of course, excessive touching. Like, there's going to be times where you have people crying, and they need a hug. and you got to hug them. I mean, if you're comfortable. There's going to be times where that happens. Like I said, if you have a client that's hysterical, something just terrible happened, and you're trying to de-escalate them, you may need to give them a hug, but not like they just
Yeah.
touching all on them all the time, you know. Next thing. Thank you. So there's no hard and fast rule like you always do it this way or you never do it this way. Basically, you got to be aware. If your supervisor was in the room, would you behave the same?
You know, unfortunately, you may have supervisors that don't behave appropriately
That is true.
with clients.
That is true.
You know, so you can come across that too.
Right. So then you would have to think about maybe another example of someone, if not your supervisor, if the police was in the same room, if your wife or your husband was in the same room, would you still do the same thing? Right? If your children were in the room, would you still joke the same? Things like that. So just like that awareness, asking yourself, right?
And if you got a question, if you should, then that means you should.
Right. Next slide, please. So we talked about this the other day, yesterday, fallibility, being able to admit that you're wrong or that they don't know. So there's going to be situations, and I'm going to speak from my own experience. I had a situation where a client was very angry because I was enforcing the no phone call rule past a certain time. And she called me several things outside my name. And rather than engage in de-escalation and walk away and come back to it later, I chose to engage with the client and I ended up yelling at the client back, right? And so I had to ask myself, okay, the fuck am I going to do now, Lord? You know, and I chose to contact my supervisor and get in front of it. Look, I need you to know this is what happened. She called me da-da-da-da-da-da. I lost my temper. I made a mistake by doing X, Y, Z. I recognize that, and I just need you to know that. Does that absolve you of the wrongdoing? Not necessarily. You might still get fired. It depends on it depends on what happened, right? But at any time that you're working in the field, you just got to be able to admit like you don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know what the best situation is. Or I messed up, man. I messed up, plain and simple. Because if you are unable to admit that you're wrong, if you're unable to admit that you don't know something, there's no way for you to change or grow, right? So just like in recovery, in the substance use field as a counselor, things are still always changing for us as well. We're also growing as well. That doesn't stop just because we become counselors. It just means that we have an added responsibility, that we're held to a higher level of responsibility and standard. That's all that means. You know, we're still exactly the same. Like we are no different than our client, except at the moment we have more information than they do on a particular subject. And we may have a little bit more, if we're in recovery as well, we may have more clean time to the person at that moment. That's all that means. But we're still the same. Right. And so the key here is communication. Communicate boundaries with your client. You're not always going to be able to see when someone's about to come out of pocket or be, you know, you just got to be ready to communicate when it happens. You could say it ahead of time. When they first come in, you do an intake, you might be able to let them know, hey, you know, if you have a dual relationship, like, look, you're my friend, you're my sponsee brother. But I can't do no extra stuff for you, bro. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I love you, but I can't do it. Please don't ask me to pick between feeding my kids and helping you do what you got to do, because I can't. I got to take care of myself. You know, it might happen in the heat of the thing. I might say something to Drew and be like, hey, you're cute, your shoes are cute. You know, hey, he's got to communicate with me in the moment. Your shoes are cute.
That's not okay. You need to chill out.
Oh, okay. That's not okay. I can't be coming on your shoes. Okay. Are you sure? It's your shoes. Okay.
Because
you know.
Also, if you don't communicate that boundary, and if that person crosses it unknowingly, then that builds resentment, and that becomes a conflict. So to avoid that, you communicate that off bat.
I didn't know you didn't like it when I talked about your shoes. You never said nothing. I was every different pair of shoe you had, I was saying something nice, and you never said nothing. Not one time. You set me up. You set me up. You know. Communicate relationships with your supervisor. Don't try to hide. If you have somebody that you know, even if it's something minuscule, like that's my significant other's sponsor's husband's brother, but I know him, even if it's something like that, it might not matter. It might be like, okay, that's cool. Thank you for letting me know. But they might be like, okay, that's good to know. I won't assign you to that person. Maybe there's another counselor that I can assign you to, or there's situations where if it's a smaller agency, there might not be anybody else to assign them to, but at least a supervisor is aware and can help you navigate the relationship without you having to damage your own ethics or get in your own hot water, And then double check, triple check when you don't know. Like, talk to, hey, I don't know if this is a problem, but I know old girl. I used to get loaded with her brother's, sister's, cousin's uncle. I don't know if that's a problem. That's cool? Okay. Oh, she said something about my shoes being cute. I told her that's not okay. Please don't comment about my appearance. That's not appropriate. I would appreciate if you don't do that. Is that cool? Is that all right? Okay. She did it twice, and I told her both times. So I don't know. Maybe you might want to talk to her. Maybe somebody else needs to get involved. I don't know. But this is the second time I done told her, don't talk about my shoes. Leave me alone. Double, triple check, right? And this is a very simplistic. This is not a super drilled down workshop about boundaries. It's very open because the fact of the matter is it's open. It's nuanced, right? Our relationship with our clients, the situations we find ourselves in, the type of program we may be in, it might be more of a peer-to-peer relationship dynamic in your program. Some programs are more about peer-to-peer mentorship, right? And so in certain situations, it's okay to do in that field or in that agency. You might have some agencies that are very strict. So for example, I'm a adolescent prevention counselor. Because I work with children, there's very strict standards. There's very strict. There's certain things I cannot do, period, point blank. But in a different program that I used to work at, it was okay for me to be like that. When I worked at the rectory, it was okay for me to be a little bit more peer-to-peer, because I graduated from that program. There was a lot of other counselors who were also graduates from that program. So they were very open with peer-to-peer. It was okay to have that dynamic. So it's just being very aware of what you're able to do, being aware of the population that you serve, being aware of what your agency wants you to do, and communicate. Does anybody have any questions about that? Anything that I said? Any situations? Anything?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What if you find yourself working in an agency and someone, I don't think you said anything about this, that you used to use with comes into that agency, but now you're working there and they're a client.
So just again, communicate with your supervisor. Hey, Anna just came in, your new intake, and I gotta let you know, me and Anna we used to get down, boy. We used to paint the town red. Like, let me tell you, like I gotta let you know that, that's the best thing to do is just let people. I used to get loaded with her. I need you to know that off top.
Big likelihood that it's gonna happen.
Yep. Big facts. Especially if you're working in the agency you used to be at, or if you're working in the county you used to do things in. Or in your family grew up, if you're not in recovery, if you're in an agency, you're from Alameda County, you were raised in Alameda County, chances are you're gonna know somebody in the facility that you're working at. So, there's no for sure certain thing that anytime this happens that you do this, just as long as you remain aware and you communicate. Anytime you don't know, communicate, talk to your supervisor.